Howdy folks, Dave here at Thunder Mesa Studio, where it is time to return once again to Gruesome Gulch. As you may recall, Gruesome Gulch is the spooky-themed mini-layout that I started in the summer of 2022 and worked to finish as much as I could on right up until Halloween. And if you missed any or all of that particular build series, I've got a whole playlist about it right here. But now it's a new year and I have committed to show the portable layout at a friend's open house this spring. And that means it's time to look alive, so to speak, and get back to work. And so, welcome, foolish mortals, to Gruesome Gulch, Phase 2. But before I do any more model making on this, there's a bit of a puzzle that needs to be solved. You see, the layout has been sitting on this little work table since early on, and this was never meant to be a long-term solution. Now I want to build something a little bit more permanent that'll make it easy to move and easier to work on. And by permanent, I mean portable. I want something that's rugged and sturdy, but can break down completely for travel. I'd also like to have some castors on it so it can roll around, and some storage on the inside, and plenty of convenient plugs for powering the layout. So it sounds like I've got some minor engineering to get done. Let's start with a drawing. And here's the kind of quick and dirty sketch I came up with. I want it to be about roughly the same dimensions as the work table it's already sitting on. So about 2 feet deep by 4 feet long, and between 36 and 40 inches high. So it's basically, there's a box up here, and then I've got 2 sets of legs coming down, and those are going to have swiveling castors, swiveling and locking casters on the bottom. A little bit of trim, some nice paint, logo on the front, maybe on both sides, I'm not sure. And on this side, there's going to be a little panel with hinges that opens up so I can access the interior for the storage I was talking about. All in all, I think it's going to look a little bit like a piece of magician's equipment. That's what it reminds me of. Or maybe a gurney that you'd roll bodies around on. That's appropriate. So it looks like I'm going to need probably a sheet of 1/2-inch plywood for these sides of the box, some dimensional lumber for the legs and the trim, some swiveling casters, and some nice looking hardware. So off to the lumber yard I go. I think I've got all the lumber I'm going to need to build this thing. I've got most of my 1/2-inch plywood cut to size. There's just one more cut I need to make on the table saw here. Now I want to cut some legs for the stand, and I've got some 2x2 stock, and I've decided I want the whole thing to be, the stand to be about 40 inches tall, and that way track level on the layout will be about 52 inches, which is the height I really like. It's the height of the Thunder Mesa layout. So I need to cut each one of these. The casters are 4 inches tall. Then there's a piece of 1x6, which is 3/4 of an inch. So these each need to be, I need 4 of these that are 35 1/4, right? By the way, guys, I'm a complete wood butcher, all right? So if any of you out there watching are experienced with fine carpentry, please avert your eyes so you won't be offended by what you're about to see. I want to attach the legs with the casters to the shorter end pieces of the box, basically, and that way they'll take up less room, be easier to move. It'll just be a less unwieldy piece than if the legs were on the long side. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start with the easy one. This is the easy side. No hatch, no door in this side, but I do need to come in a 1/2 inch from the ends so that the front and back of the stand will kind of slot right in like that. I'm gluing all these joints together with some Tight Bond wood glue, and then I'm also using some drywall screws. And I know there are better things out there for woodworking than drywall screws, but I just happen to always have drywall screws around, so you know, just makes my life easier. Now I'm adding some additional bracing at the top and the bottom for extra strength. Now I'm making a couple of L-shaped cleats, and these will go down here on the bottom of the legs, and the castors are actually going to connect right to those. And this is just some 1x4 and 1x2. And you can tell this is the cheapo lumber from the lumber yard. This primer is on here so thick, it's like a 1/16 of an inch thick. It just chips right off when you put screws in it. So I'll be putting that towards the inside where it won't show. Now I can go ahead and install the castors, and each one of these side pieces gets 2 swivel castors, one non-locking and one locking. So I can keep it from rolling away if I want to. Just using some 3/4 inch construction screws, some number 8 washers to hold these on. Alright, so now I'm building the opposite side, and on this one the frame is pretty much the same, except it's not connected to this side of the plywood. Remember, I cut this piece right here, so there's going to be hinges on the other side, and this piece is going to swing out for an access door. So I'm just putting the frame together the same way, and I just have this clamped in place so that everything stays where I want it to be. And I've got these nice looking antique brass hinges. I want to come down about 3 inches, yeah. Alright, drill some pilot holes. We'll get these hinges on. Now we've got a couple of basic magnetic latches. Real simple installation. They're just like the ones on your kitchen cabinet at home. Okay, now I can get the wheels on it. It's getting kind of late in the afternoon and more than a little bit chilly out here in the garage, so I'm probably going to wrap this up for the day soon, but I wanted to show you where we're at. I just finished building one of the sides, still have the other one to do. And as you can see, I've taken the sheet of 1/2 inch plywood, this 24 by 48 piece of plywood, and I've trimmed it out with, these are 1x3s, and they're from my scrap box, so they don't really match, so don't worry, it's all going to get painted, and you'll never know. And what I've done, let me flip it around. As you can see, the 1x3 on this side overhangs the end by a good 1/2 inch, and that is to mate up with this edge of this side right here. Here, let me just show you how this goes together. So each side will lock in just like that, and then to secure everything in place, I've decided to use good old bolts. I mean, really, a nut and a bolt and washer is still the best way to secure something like this, to break it down and put it back together over and over again. So each side is going to have 4 bolts. I'm using some round-headed 1/4-inch bolts that are 3.5 inches long. Those are going to go all the way through, right down the line on each side, and come through those 2x2 legs that I added to the sides earlier. Then I can put this whole thing together. Let me finish building this other side, and it's getting exciting. Pretty soon it'll look like something. I've got it all together, let's take a look at the inside. As you can see, I've marked the back and the left and right sides and the front, and that way everything will go back together in the same way, and those bolts will all line up. And remember, I said I wanted to have storage on the inside, so I've added this removable shelf. It's 11 inches by 4 feet, and it just pulls right out. Now I've got some shorty 3/4 inch long 1/4 inch bolts, and these are purely decorative. I'm putting them along the top and bottom rail just to match these on the side, make it look like, once it's painted, it'll look like the whole thing has been bolted or riveted together. Well, here's a fun little detail, don't you think? Picked these up at my local home center. Unfortunately, they only had 2 left, and they're not getting more of them. So I've got 1 for each corner in the front, and believe it or not, it's a bottle opener. Okay, well, I think the construction phase is done. I'm not going to do any more detailing on the ends. I added a knob here to open and close this panel, but I'm not going to do any more detailing on these ends because it's really not going to show underneath the layout, but the front and the back side definitely will. So now let's get some paint on it. I want this to look like something that might have rolled out of Dr. Frankenstein's lab, so I want it to look like it's metal. And that's pretty easy to do with a lot of the spray paints that are available today with hammered finishes. This is a Rust-Oleum Universal Forge Hammered Paint and Primer in 1, and the color is Antique Pewter. It comes in a lot of different colors, bronze and silver, copper, flat black. And I'm going to start with a coat of this all over the whole thing, except for the castors, of course, and see where we go from there. Well, I figured this would take at least 2 cans, and I was right. Actually, I wound up using almost 3 cans of the pewter, but that's just the base coat. It's a little bit too clean and pristine looking for my taste. I want this to look like it was down in the doctor's lab for 100 years. So now I'm going to come in with some brown and just kind of hit it down around the bottom here as kind of the first pass at weathering on this. I'm doing most of the base painting down here, and then I'm going to take the whole thing up to the studio, and that's where I'll do the final weathering on it with acrylics and washes and things like that. But for now, I'm just going to get the basic tones on here. Now I just want to go around and make that look even grimier and darker with a little bit of black. I like the way that's looking, so I'm going to do a little bit of brown along the top too. Not quite as heavy as on the bottom. I think it's suitably grimy now. At least I've made a good start on it. Really nothing left to do now except to let it all dry overnight, and then we can take it up to the studio tomorrow and finish it up. Here we are back up at the studio on a cold and snowy day here in Jerome. I managed to get the stand all broken down. It came apart just the way it was supposed to. Got it transported up here. But now comes the real test of portability. This is really the first test of how portable this thing is going to be. Now I got to put it back together, and hopefully it goes back together the way it's supposed to. So I think the easiest thing is going to be to lay this back wall down on the floor and put the sides in and start from there. Basically assemble the whole thing on the floor and then flip it up this way. There we go. Getting them all lined up. Okay. Hidden Mickey. Oh, look at that. Just like it's supposed to. You might remember that I said in addition to storage, I also want to have some plugs, some power inside here so I can plug in the various DC wall warts to bring power to the layout. So I've just got a power strip, and I'm just going to mount that right inside to this leg. There we go. Put our shelf back in. Wow, not bad. I'm not quite ready to put the layout on here yet. I actually have someone coming up later to help me with that job, because it's definitely a two-person job. Even though the layout is very lightweight, it's still 6 feet long, so it's a little unwieldy. So they're going to come up and help me with that, but in the meantime, I want to do some more weathering on this, and I've got a little project that I want to work on for the front of this. Let's go over to the workbench and take a look. Some of you may recall last year I created a couple of faux bronze plaques for the Thunder Mesa layout, and I laser cut the pieces out of some 1/16 of an inch thick MDF, and then glued the whole thing up and painted it to look like bronze. Well, I'm going to do something very similar now for the Gruesome Gulch layout, except this one's not going to be bronze. I'm actually going to paint it black and white and blue and gray. This is the back part. This will be painted a flat black, and then I've got all the lettering that will be glued on and some of the other detail pieces and trim. So it'll be a 3D sign that's going to be mounted on the front of the stand I just built. And I want to get this done and get it on there before I do the final weathering so I can tie it all together. course, I etched lines into this, and you probably can't see them at all now. I can still see them, so I know where these pieces are going to fit. Now I need to put some holes in this for mounting screws. And you know, if I'd been thinking, I would have laser cut these in, but I'm ready to go put this on the stand. But before I do, I want to give it a quick coat with an acrylic spray, clear acrylic protective coat. And you know, the reasons for this are, you know, one, I want it to be protected, but two, it's also to cover any mistakes. When you're gluing stuff up and sometimes you don't get glue exactly where you want it, you know, you try your best, but you know, it gets in some place you didn't want it to be. And even if it dries clear, like all this glue does, it's still going to have a different sheen to it. It's going to, you know, it's going to catch the light differently than the rest of the piece. And so the way to fix that, or the way to hide that mistake, is to make everything have the same sheen, have the same reflective qualities with the light. And there's nothing better to do that with than a clear acrylic spray. You could use matte or glossy or satin. It really doesn't matter. It depends on the kind of model you're doing. I'm going to use a satin finish on this, and that way any of my little mistakes with glue that I can see will disappear. Just got a text from my helper today, and they say they're on their way. So the next thing really is going to be, we're going to move the layout onto the stand. This should be fun. Ready? Lift with your legs. Oh, it's really light. Yeah, it's all made out of styrofoam.
It's just awkward.
Yeah, it's just long. There. That was it. As you can see, we got the layout on the new stand. It was pretty easy. This thing is really lightweight. I'm going to put this on with some round-headed brass screws. As promised, it is time to add some more weathering to this. And the first thing I want to do, the first pass, is this is some black acrylic paint diluted with a little bit of water. And what I'm doing is going around into all of the crevices, basically all the way around this. You put it on and then just wipe it off real quick. You don't want to let it dry on there like that. So, timing is important. And when you've got things looking the way you want, you can really speed things up with a hairdryer. So that's really the look we're going for right there, just that griminess in the joints. Now I want to add some rust. I already did, you know, kind of gave this a tone so it looks like a little bit rusty down along the bottom and along the edges here, but I want to punch that up a little more. So I've got some burnt umber and burnt sienna acrylics, and I've ripped off some pieces of kitchen sponge, and I'm just going to sponge this on. First, the the burnt umber, and then we'll come back with the burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is super strong, so you want to use it sparingly. Let me show you this technique for getting rust back up into this crack up here. First you go in with the sponge, just still using the same color paints, a little burnt umber, burnt sienna, shoving it up into the crack and then pulling it down like this. Now, just like that, that's way too strong. It doesn't look like rust. Take a dry paper towel and we go in and kind of dab it. Wipe a lot of it off. Now you take a wet paper towel or cloth towel, I guess it doesn't matter, and you do this. And that's going to give you that streaked rust look. And you can continue to work these acrylics for a while. That's how we do that. Well, now my sign is looking way too clean and tidy by comparison, so it's time to grime that up. And I'm not going to do too much rust on this, just mostly grays and maybe some dark browns. I think that'll do. Now we'll set it with some clear acrylic matte finish. Now I can just open up the hatch, reach in and plug in the DC transformer. Maybe we can run a train. Everything's hooked up and I plug the stand in and it all works. You know, I love it when a plan comes together. Now, some of you may be wondering how the layout actually attaches to the stand, and you think I left that part out. No, I saved it to the end. Sometimes I do that just to make sure you watch the entire video. There's a pair of cleats attached to the bottom of the layout that lock it in place on the stand. There's no physical connection, no screws or bolts or anything like that, just some cleats that fit inside the stand itself. And you can lift the whole thing off with a friend, but you can't move it back or forth or side to side without moving the stand too. Simple. I want to thank you all for watching this entire video from beginning to end, and don't forget to like and subscribe and share and hit that notification bell if you want to see more. There's going to be a lot more coming on Gruesome Gulch in the near future, so stay tuned for that. You can also follow along on Instagram at thunder.mesa and find out all that's new on the Thunder Mesa Studio website at thundermesa.studio. And of course, if you really like what we're doing here on the channel and would like to show your support, you can do what these nice folks did and head on over to patreon.com/thundermesa and show your support there. Until next time, keep moving forward, my friends. Adios for now. Hey! There's a whole other side back here that still needs to be finished.